Picture this. Instead of the American flag on the moon, imagine astronauts from the US and USSR shaking hands on the lunar surface. Sounds like science fiction, but in 1963, President John F. Kennedy actually proposed this bold idea to the United Nations. At the height of the Cold War, Kennedy invited the Soviets to join the US in a shared mission to the moon. Here's the story of how close we came to rewriting history. But on September 20th, 1963, before the United Nations General Assembly, Kennedy delivered one of the boldest proposals in space history. Just 2 years earlier, in 1961, Kennedy had promised Americans that we would land on the moon before the decade was out. The race to space was more than just science. It was a demonstration of global power between the US and the USSR. Yet by 1963, Kennedy began rethinking the rivalry. The Cuban Missile Crisis had nearly pushed the world into nuclear war the previous year, and the costs of the Apollo program were skyrocketing. So Kennedy flipped the script. He stood before the world's leaders and declared, "In a field where the United States and the Soviet Union have a special capacity, in the field of space, there is room for new cooperation. I include among these possibilities a joint expedition to the moon." Think about how radical that was. Two bitter enemies who had been racing to outdo one another with satellites, astronauts, and rockets, suddenly being asked to share the ultimate prize, walking on the moon. For the Soviets, it was both tempting and suspicious. Khrushchev reportedly considered the offer but was wary of hidden motives. Ultimately, the idea never materialized. Just months later, Kennedy was assassinated in November 1963, and his vision of a joint mission died with him. The space race went on as a competition, culminating in Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin planting the American flag in the moon in July 1969. But imagine if history had gone differently. What if the first steps on the moon were taken not under one flag, but by astronauts from two rival nations standing side by side? Kennedy's proposal remains one of history's greatest what-ifs, a glimpse at how cooperation might have changed the course of the Cold War, and even the future of space exploration. Follow, like, and share for more interesting tidbits and stories from history.